my name is Ashley McDonald, and I am the Technology Education Manager here at 45 Drives. And
I'm Spencer McPhee with another Tuesday Tech Tip.
Yeah, and today we are going to walk you through an interview with Thomas Frank, YouTuber, author, entrepreneur, and also a 45 Drives customer who so happens to be using our Q30. And in that particular interview, we just asked him a couple of questions about his infrastructure, how he's using it, and hope you'll enjoy it. So I guess we'll just kind of jump right in. And where I was going was, we know we got your start with College Info Geeks, your blog, or your geek, pardon me, your blog in 2010. But can you give us a quick rundown of your channels and the kind of brands that you're involved in currently?
Yeah, so my main channel just called Thomas Frank, and basically the content that I try to put on my channel is intended to help people who are my age or a bit younger become more capable in life. So whether that deals with relationships or productivity or personal finance or academic success, that's kind of what my main channel focuses on. Originally, it was very focused on academic success and college tips, and then I just kind of got old. So now it's expanded, and I'm basically trying to put out well-researched content that answers the questions that I've gone through growing up. So how do you buy a house? How do you deal with managing yourself? How do you pivot in your career? These are kind of things that I'm focusing on now.
Yeah, and the kind of things I feel that they don't often teach you in school necessarily, how to do your taxes properly, how to buy a home, those sorts of things.
It's kind of funny too, because I am actually pretty familiar with your channel. I use a lot of your Notion templates, oddly enough.
Oh, nice.
And I started in academia for the reason behind using the Notion templates, and now I'm finding I'm still using them for my work, for managing the projects I'm dealing with here. So it's been kind of a weird, I've gone through the whole college, high school using it, and now I'm adapting it to actual, life things, and buying cars
awesome to
and
hear.
houses and stuff. So it's all been really interesting for me.
It's almost come full circle in a way, in that particular sort of fashion. So further to that, and kind of talking more about your channels, what sort of storage setup did you use prior to adopting a 45 Drives storage solution?
We were doing everything in Google Drive, basically. So when I started, it was just me. And I would fill one hard drive up, and then I would buy another hard drive, and all my main footage was on my own computer. And I was editing off of a single platter drive for a very long time, and then that got really annoying. So I would put the current projects I was editing on a current projects folder on an SSD, and that worked a bit better. And then I finally hired my first editor, and he was in Chicago at the time. I was in Denver, so we had to do completely remote setup. So we basically just put all of our Premiere projects into Google Drive, and for a long time, we literally used Google Drive for everything. Then I got a bit more hardcore about the camera and quality that I'm using for my videos, so high bitrate cameras. So then we had to literally learn how to do your typical Hollywood offline edit setup, where we had footage on a hard drive that I would link back to the projects after he was done editing it, and he would work off of smaller proxy files. He then moved to Denver in 2018, and we were doing a pretty much that setup, and then we decided, all right, this is enough. We need to actually get a real server so we can both work on the same project at the same time, but also be able to work with the files themselves instead of using just this offline setup.
Yeah, it's such a common story thread to hear from a lot of people in video production. It's as they get more production value, files just explode in size, right? And just becomes unmanageable at a certain point without actual infrastructure to deal with that.
Yeah, and oftentimes
I think the average project.
You've got all of these different hard drives, and they're taped with a certain date. They've got Sharpie written on it. Thumbprint comes on it, wipes it away. Those sorts of things. So, like Spencer said, that's a story that we hear a lot. And it's one of our main industries, I dare say, is video production, and just folks like yourself who kind of run into that particular problem of kind of needing more storage but not necessarily knowing where to start. So I guess a great segue into that particular question that we just asked is, how did you hear about 45 Drives specifically?
Linus.
Yeah. We get a lot of
I've been watching Linus for a very long time.
Yep.
And I've always loved his vlogs the most.
Yeah.
The other content is cool too, but I've always loved the vlogs because it's sort of, I don't know, it kind of gives me like the same feeling that I used to have when I worked in IT, just being around other computer nerds. So I was watching the vlogs and finished their moving vlogs and then found server vlog, and I'm like, oh, hey, what are they doing with this Storinator thing? Oh, all of their editors are hooked up to one storage solution where they can edit directly off the, really? Okay. So that was sort of the exposure to it. And then once Tony and I got fed up trying to do like network shares off my main desktop, we decided to take the plunge.
Yeah, okay. Cool. And we know you're working with a Q30, Q30 Enhanced, is that correct? So why don't you tell us a little bit more about that particular setup and kind of what you're using it for, to the best of your knowledge anyway.
Yeah, so we did go with a Q30. We have not filled it up with drives yet. We have 15 in there. I believe they are the I think there's 16 terabyte drives because you guys offer 18 terabyte now, but I want to say when I bought it, 16 terabyte was the top end.
Yeah, that would make sense. 18's probably the past year or so.
Yeah, so I believe in terms of usable storage, we have about 170 terabytes.
Okay.
And I would be able to tell you how much we're using right now, but we actually just moved the server over to my editor's house because I'm moving right now.
That's okay.
So cool. I think we're only using like 40 terabytes. So that'll tide us over for quite a long time.
Yeah, that.
But yeah, it's that. I think it's the enhanced one. We did the redundant power supply, which is quite loud. So I have a server closet. And for a very long time, we literally just had a piece of carpet over it. And we finally invested in a noise canceling server enclosure.
And how's
like
that? I bet you that's helping a lot, huh?
According to my editor, it's helping a lot. I haven't actually heard it myself yet.
Yeah. When I first started here, I had an S45, my testing unit, literally on my desk. So whenever I was on calls with clients for engineering and stuff, you would just hear the fans of this giant S45 literally sitting on my desk. And we recently got our own server room and moved all the stuff down there as well. But I kind of miss it, honestly, the constant fan noise.
Yeah, it almost became like I dare say like a white noise almost. Yeah. We're sitting around, because we just moved into our office. What is it now? It's, goodness, losing track of time. It's November. So I want to say we moved in here around June.
Around there.
April, June, May, somewhere around there. And yeah, like Spencer said, for the longest time, we had just kind of our own infrastructure sitting around until we got the storage room up and running. And it was, it became like almost just day to day. We'd hear it in the background, and then I almost missed it too in a way. It was just like, it's awfully quiet in here. Super, super weird. So again, talking about your storage infrastructure, what was the process like getting that all set up and getting it all up and running?
Let's see here. We ordered the server. I did not really know anything about building servers or what we would need, so I bought a way too big, not even enclosure, just a rack. And I think it's like 20U, which for people who don't know what U is, it's like, I don't know, 4 feet tall.
Yep.
And the Storinator is like not even a foot tall. So very much more than we needed. And we got that built. We got the server set up, which was really easy. And then I think I opted for the support hours because I wanted somebody who was qualified to set up FreeNAS.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so we have FreeNAS set up, and then we also have the Nextcloud set up.
Okay.
So
Cool.
basically gives us our own version of Google Drive where we can access all of our files from basically anywhere.
Yeah. And how do you find that working for you?
That's really nice. Like
Yeah.
my editor is usually in the office with me, so we don't need to use it very often. But in like there have been cases where actually just a couple of weeks ago I was in LA, and for whatever reason my editor couldn't post the video that we had to get live the next day, so I was able to download the video directly from our server and then upload it myself. So that's pretty nice.
Yeah, Nextcloud's super cool. We've been doing a lot of work lately with like collaborative document sharing on Nextcloud using a program called OnlyOffice, which kind of like mimics the Office 365 suite, so you can have multiple people editing a doc on the same time off of Nextcloud, which has been really cool to work on lately. Yeah, for a kind of emergency, we need the file. Nextcloud works great for that kind of stuff.
Yep, and that's pretty much what we use it for. We still use Drive for like shared files, like Excel spreadsheets or whatever that kind of stuff is, or everything we use is kind of Google or Notion based. But yeah, if we need access to big files that we wouldn't want to throw into Drive, it's there, and it's a nice option to have.
Cool.
Very cool. Glad to hear it's working for you,
Yeah.
especially you know from my perspective and being part of the team that I'm from. So one other question, and I noticed that you like to call yourself a solution finder. So how is your 45 drives storage solution working for you now? And you kind of answered that a little bit, but how's it working for you?
I mean, it's working really, really well.
Yeah.
So we did RAID 6,
Yep.
which means that we have, I think it's like 13 drives that are actually in use. And the thing that I didn't realize before I got the server, I thought it was just going to be a ton of storage space, is it's like striping all of our data across RAID 6, 13 drives means it is insanely fast. And then we did a 10 gigabit networking connection as well. So it is literally faster than a SATA connection to an SSD inside the machine itself, which means the editing is a lot faster too.
Awesome to hear. Yeah, a lot of people don't really recognize that RAID isn't just there for like redundancy purposes, right? It helps with performance a lot too, especially when you get into some more like esoteric, fancy RAID setups. RAID 6 is pretty common for what we deploy. Kind of glad to hear that we did deploy RAID 6 when we were setting up your unit as well, because it is what we've found to be the safest RAID while still getting the same good performance out of it.
Yeah, and that was one concern of mine is how do I back my data up? So I think, and maybe you have a better suggestion for me, but the conclusion I've come to is the RAID 6 provides me, I think it's double redundancy for a drive failure, which is nice. And then via FreeNAS, I set up a 3-tier snapshot system. So there's like one tier that snapshots, I think it's like every 5 minutes and keeps those for 2 weeks. And then there's another tier that snapshots like every day, keeps that for a year. And then the third tier is like very long term. So basically if we accidentally delete something, we can just revert back to a snapshot probably 5 minutes ago, which is nice because there's no like recycle bin with Linux as far as I know. And then I had one of your techs configure automatic upload to Backblaze B2,
Cool.
The cloud. So for everything that is, I think, under 8 gigabytes, we have that automatically backing up to the cloud.
Awesome.
So if I lose, 100 gigabyte file or me talking head, like that's fine. But I don't want to lose like really cool B-roll shots that we did or the actual files themselves.
Yeah, no, that's a pretty good setup. I would say that is more amounts of redundancy than a lot of people have. Because a lot of people think RAID's like a replacement for a backup. Or RAID isn't a backup, right?
Well, I realized if somebody comes in and steals my server or like it burns up in a fire, like RAID doesn't help me and snapshots don't help me. And those are rare, but like, so I'm, what do they call it? Like the 3-2-1 system where you want to have 3 backups and two of them are local, one is offsite.
Yep, exactly.
Exactly it. Yep.
That's what I tried to do.
Yeah, the offsite backup is also sometimes called like the meteor strike backup. It's a giant meteor hit your building and nothing is gone. You can't recover anything. That is the final straw in order to get it back. So we have Meteor Strike backup. I also had them configure it so only I think 30 gigabytes per day will upload, so that way it doesn't completely obliterate my Xfinity cap. So it's it's not completely backed up yet. I think it was going to be like 2 years to upload what we had, but it means that we've got something rather than nothing up in the cloud. For sure. Yeah, and I mean you can like prioritize too what data you think is critical enough to need to go first, right? So there's a lot of flexibility in there.
Yeah,
cool.
Absolutely. So just one final question there, Thomas. So just talking about your sort of past problems, if you will. So what sort of problems were you able to work through with your past storage infrastructure versus now having the Storinator in place and sort of working through those problems and what that's brought you now?
I think we've gone through the biggest ones. Like it was mainly like everything was on my one computer and I was continually adding drives and running out of space. So that's the big one. And the other one was just giving access to my editor. And a big one that we ran into was also wanting to work on the same project at once. Like with Adobe, they have there's like 2 ways to do this. It's like a cloud collaborative editing thing that didn't work for us. And then there's one that's kind of hidden and built into Premiere, but will literally let you work on the same project from 2 computers in a certain way. And we're like, cool, we want to do that, but we need all of our files to be in the same place. Otherwise, the paths are broken. So that's the main thing the Storinator helps us with, is keeping a single centralized storage place for all of our files to not only be stored, but also be worked on maybe even simultaneously by 2 editors.
Yeah, awesome. And I would say that's often the main takeaway for everyone, like we talked about earlier, especially in your industry, just having that one centralized location where oftentimes many people can work from that particular storage infrastructure. So yeah, they're kind of all like the official questions that we had. I mean, certainly if there's anything you want to ask us is kind of being on the other end here. No pressure, absolutely, but that's all we had for you today.
Yeah. My question is there, what are the solutions you have found for keeping servers in general quiet? especially if you don't have a server closet.
I'll go with Spencer for that one.
Yeah, so the main thing is putting it in an area that has decent enough airflow, right? A server, the reason servers are loud is because those fans need to keep things cool. If they don't keep things cool, things start to become a little funky, drives can start dropping out, you can start to damage hardware as things get hotter. So really, if you're in a relatively well air-conditioned area, or you have a fairly open space, those will help keep your server quiet because it won't need to spin up those fans as hard. You could also play with some tolerances, like if your server's spec'd out to run at 60 degrees Celsius for most of the parts, and your fans are set up on a curve to keep it at like 40, well, there's some room there to lower your fan speeds, increase the temperature a little bit, but keep under your threshold, and then you don't get that constant fan noise as bad.
Gotcha. That's good to know. Okay, so we'll check out those tolerances, and I'm guessing that I can see them in FreeNAS.
FreeNAS should have a settings menu for it.
Cool.
If not there, it would be in the shell for sure.
Gotcha.
I'm sure one of our guys could also find it for you as well.
Sweet. Alrighty.
Cool.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Thomas, for chatting with us today. It's a pleasure to sort of virtually meet you, if you will. And we really appreciate you taking the time out to chat with us, not just about your day-to-day, but also how you're using 45 Drive's infrastructure to help facilitate that.
Yeah, great chatting as well.
Likewise, take care, and I look forward to continue watching you on YouTube. Love your videos. They're absolutely fantastic, and the overthinking one really, really helped me, because I tend to be a bit of an overthinker sometimes. So sometimes getting help with that decision-making process, it was super, super helpful, so I appreciate it.
I'm glad you found it helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Take care. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.